Yo, welcome back to Alex Academy. In this video, let's talk about Chapter 2. First out, we got Pope's Rebellion, also known as the Pueblo Revolt. Date to know is 1680, pretty important. So Pope was this Pueblo commoner who organized this revolt. Like we talked in the last vid, the Spanish conquistador Juan de Onate conquered the city of Santa Fe and forced many Pueblos into submission. Pope, like many other Pueblos, resented this, and so they revolted. In the end, they were able to kill many Franciscan priests and drive the Spanish out. This didn't last very long though, and other tribes such as the Navajo and Apache, with the aid of the Spanish, retook control. And this is actually a picture of Pope right here in the United States Capitol Statutory Hall. Next, we have the Beaver Wars. The Beaver Wars are basically a series of wars and conflicts from 1640 to 1680 against the Hurons. Basically, the Iroquois and the Dutch were allied together, and they defeated the Hurons, who were allied with the French. And as a result, they gained a lot of the French and Huron lands, and they also won a small Swedish colony. After them, we have Jamestown, Virginia. It was founded in 1607, which is really important because it's like the beginning of this time period. And the Virginia Company was a joint stock company, and in 1607, 100 men on ships arrived in the Chesapeake area of Virginia, seen right here. And then, as a result, they didn't really bring farmers, which was proved out to be really fatal for these boys. They only brought artisans and poor people, and pretty soon this colony was near collapse. But the very significant part about Jamestown is that it's the first permanent English settlement. So we have the House of Burgesses. The date to know is 1619. And the House of Burgesses was basically this local governing body that regulated taxes and finances in the Chesapeake area. So before the Virginia Company went bankrupt in around 1624, the House of Burgesses was really the governing body of the Virginia area. And they also had a really important right, and that was the power to tax the people. The Mayflower Compact was this sort of agreement drafted up by William Bradford, seen right here, and it was really to appease the angry men on board the Mayflower with him. And as a result, it creates this agreement for a governing body for the new colony in Plymouth, Massachusetts. Also, this is known as a civil body politic because it was just the people there. There wasn't really a government just to control them. And these people really had to decide for themselves what kind of rights they wanted in this new land. Rebellion. So a Virginian named Nathaniel Bacon organized a force of poor settler farmers who were mad at the Tidewater aristocracy, also known as the rich people living on the coast. The farmers felt that they were being used as a buffer to the natives and that they lacked protection. The rich refused to provide a military force for protection as well. In the end, Jamestown is burned. Bacon himself dies of dysentery because there was a lot of disease in that area. And when the rebels are suppressed, 23 of the leaders are hanged. Ultimately, though, it really ended up showing the power of these former indentured servants and how they could successfully revolt against the powerful people. After Bacon's rebellion, we have the Maryland Toleration Act. Basically, it was passed in Maryland, by the Calvert fam, also known as Lord Baltimore and family. And essentially what it said was that in this proprietary colony, all Christians could practice freely without persecution, even though the colony was originally a Catholic safe haven. And also notice Christian though. If you denied Jesus' divinity or you didn't believe at all, you were not tolerated regardless. Roger Williams and Anne Hutchinson were basically known as two people to be dissenters. So originally they were Puritans, but they started speaking out against the Puritans in Massachusetts, and so they got kicked out. So Roger Williams was this advocate of religious tolerance and separation of church and state. And today he's known as the father of the modern Baptists. And basically, he left Massachusetts and he went to Providence in what is today Rhode Island. And he founded that small town. And what he did revolutionary was that he bought land from the natives, the Narragansett Indians, instead of just stealing land like many of the Puritans and other English did. So this is a picture of Roger Williams right here. There's a statue of him. And over here, we have this lady known as Anne Hutchinson. So Anne Hutchinson was this outspoken woman who was excommunicated from the Puritans because after Sunday worship, she would always go out and speak what she thought the pastor or preacher said, which was considered heretic at the time. And so eventually, she got excommunicated And so first she went to Roger Williams's city, his town, the Williams community, but eventually she goes on to establish another colony herself, Portsmouth, Rhode Island. Phillips War. So this dude highlighted in red over here is King Philip, also known as Metacom to a lot of the natives. And basically he led the Pogonokets, which were one of the last independent tribes in the New England area. But in King Philip's War from the year 1675 to 1676, in this really brutal war, what happened was the English defeated King Philip and this last remaining independent tribe. So once they were defeated, it sort of left the Iroquois as the only dominant tribe in the area, and it really started to change things toward the British favor as all the natives started dying out. Next we got the Dominion of New England. This is basically when James II took power in England and decided to take a stronger grip on the New England colonies. He consolidated New York, New Jersey, and the New England states, so like Massachusetts and the surrounding area, into one. He trashed the existing representative assemblies in the process and appointed a new governor, Sir Edmund Andros, who was from Britain. This dude was really hated because he increased taxes, limited town meetings, and revoked land titles. Ultimately, James's plan didn't really last long because the Glorious Revolution of 1688 deposed James and put in William and Mary, who were more friendly to the colonies. Soon after, the original ways returned. Slave codes were basically also known as slave laws, and they seek to limit African Americans for life and their offspring as well. And this occurred because slavery was increasing and many whites felt they were losing power. In many cases, slaves were seen less than whites and were socially inferior. And pretty soon, racism and slavery was integral to colonial society. Colonial society just didn't exist without it. Mercantilism was the practice that European kingdoms used on colonies to benefit and enrich themselves, and this was the premier economic policy at the time. Simply, colonies provided raw materials for the mother country, and this mother country would use these to manufacture goods that could be resold to the colonies or elsewhere. And as a result, this made the mother countries filthy rich. Navigation Acts. So navigation acts were acts used to control colonial trade. For England, this meant that only English ships could operate in the colonies, and all imports except perishables, because obviously they would spoil, had to pass England first. And special or enumerated goods could only go to England. Tobacco was one of these, and the list soon expanded to become quite long. Sometimes it was good, like it helped New England shipbuilding and the tobacco monopoly, but other times it was really bad because it drained crop prices and inflated manufactured goods from the colonies. Most importantly though, it caused a strain politically because England imposed too many regulations, and this eventually would lead to revolution. The last two we have the West Indies and sugarcane. So this was a big money-making industry. As part of the Middle Passage, gold and slaves would come from Africa, and they would be offloaded to work in the Indies as slaves on cane plantations. So this is the West Indies right over here, Cuba, Caribbean area. And on these cane plantations, processed sugar cane could then be loaded onto the ships and boarded to New England, up in the American colonies where rum was made. And at every step, the merchants grew crazy rich by trading. Ultimately, though, this was a really brutal trade. This red arrow is pointing to a bunch of the slaves who came from Africa to work in the West Indies sugarcane plantations. Finally, we have the Middle Passage and triangular trade. So these are pretty interconnected. Basically, the Middle Passage, like we said, is just a slave trade over, so it's highlighted in yellow right here. And the triangular trade also included stuff such as sending raw materials from the American colonies to England for manufacturing or consumption, so like rice. And from England to Africa came guns and other technology used to capture the slaves. And together, these three legs really helped form basically the triangular trade. And this process was really sophisticated. But ultimately, it really just meant the European people got a lot richer. This has been Chapter 2 of AMSCO US History. And thanks so much for sticking around. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. And also like, comment, and share this video with all your friends. Thanks so much, and hope to see you in the next one.